What's going on, everyone? I hope you all had a fantastic weekend, and I hope you're ready to roll in the markets this week. In today's video, of course, we're going to be talking about some awesome setups for tomorrow, but we also have a lot to talk about related to the government shutdown and the small chance that Twitter ends up coming back onto the stock market and goes public, among many other things. We also have Powell speaking this week, so we do have a lot to talk about, so you better stick with us all the way to the end. But Tom, let's get right into today's episode.
Yeah, Mike, that market last week was pretty insane overall. If we do like a really quick recap on the week, it kind of didn't do anything, right? We fell down slightly, hit support, and then SPY came running kind of back up into those areas that we kind of opened at on Monday around 428 to 432. There was kind of that 4-point range there. I am curious this week if whether or not the SPY is going to really hold that key trend line that we've been kind of watching to the upside. If we go out to an hourly or a daily chart, there's been a pretty big trend line that the SPY has been following to the upside here, and when we hit that last week, we started to get some nice green movement back to the upside. But this week is going to be something else, Mike, because tomorrow we have Tesla's delivery numbers coming out. That is going to be a huge problem for us, and we still have news coming out about the government shutdown. But the good thing is that it looks like the shutdown has been avoided, at least for now. They passed a 45-day funding bill to keep the government open, and as you read through here, it's honestly not the best, right? Like, they're taking out aid for Ukraine, different things like that. They're really just trying to keep this open for 45 days while they work and give the House and the Senate more time to finish the real legislation there. So it's just kind of like a 45-day hiatus, you could say, right? The government's trying to stay open here and keep people happy, but, you know, at the same time, it's like they're not really getting anything done yet, but they'll have time to pass this now, so hopefully something gets done soon.
This is exactly like putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs a lot more treatment, right? It's like there are much deeper problems here, and then this 45-day funding bill is just like a little temporary fix. So like the problem's still there, but we have 45 days of peace, at least for now. So keep that in mind. As of right now, the government is not shutting down, but after 45 days, that can change. But for the short term, you know, this is good news for the market. You know, of course, when there are shutdowns, it's not really the best news. It doesn't really help anyone out. And Tom, as you mentioned a couple minutes ago, Tesla and their delivery numbers, basically Tesla is set to release their delivery numbers anytime between, you know, Sunday or Monday. They didn't give an exact date, but when they do release these numbers, it always moves Tesla stock. So as we all know, Tesla stock is one of the most volatile and, you know, craziest stocks in the market. And whenever you have an event like this, you just can't not watch it. So keep a very close eye on Tesla over like the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, those delivery numbers are going to be so key for Tesla, and I cannot wait to see how they end up coming out, Mike. With the way inflation's been and everything, I'm wondering if there's going to be any substantial growth. And I know Tesla's been lowering their prices on their Model 3s over the past, 6 months or so, quite a few times. I think that might play a role in maybe helping some of the numbers, maybe not their margins necessarily, but at least the delivery numbers. More people might be buying the vehicles. And like looking at Tesla's stock, it's another stock that has actually done pretty good this year. Since the beginning of the year till now, it's up over 100% still. But in the short term, it seems like there's a lower high going on that daily chart. If these numbers don't come in good and they come in kind of sour, I think Tesla's stock might take a bit of a tumble, maybe down to like that 230 support, somewhere close to that. But it's going to be a wild swing for Tesla. Keep them on the radar for tomorrow. It might be a really fun stock to trade, honestly, in either direction. If you're a good momentum trader out there, I'm sure this one will have plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, Tesla's always a great one to trade, but, looking at the market overall right now, Tom, as you mentioned, we're kind of in like a spot where like there's not like a ton of bullish momentum, but at the same time, we're definitely not in free fall right now. It's just kind of like a middle zone. And one thing I always like to reference is seasonality, and this year's seasonality has been almost spot on with the historical averages. What we could see with the red line is the market performance so far this year, and then the gray and black line represent the historical averages. And like I said, it's been spot on, and over the next couple of days, it looks like, at least historically speaking, the market normally dips down a little bit more, and then from there on, it seems like normally we have a pretty strong end to the year. But just keep that in mind. At least going off seasonality, we might struggle a little bit in the short term, but then the market should pick up.
Yeah, I like that, how it's been so spot on. We've been talking about this chart a lot, Mike, and I've been actually getting into some positions like SQQQ and other things, preparing for this kind of move down here this month, and it's been pretty, it's been going pretty well so far, and just day trading those SQQQ calls and etc., and having that bearish, I would say, sentiment has been really helpful for my trading. Hopefully it's helped you guys out over the past few weeks too, because Mike, I know that we've been pretty on top of these seasonality reports and pretty on top of all this downwards price action, and going and looking at the SPY. I mean, if you look at it over the past, I would say, 25 days or so, I mean, you're seeing pretty bad selling pressure lately, and I would not be surprised if we popped up a little bit in the short term. But then again, with all the government, arguments between the shutdown going on and everything with the seasonalities, and now Tesla's numbers are going to come into play, that could definitely shake things up tomorrow. But as of right now, there's like a big support here at 425 and another big resistance around 430 to 432 to watch in the short term, and it's going to get extremely fun the next few days, I think. And then October historically turns around and ends up being bullish, so maybe I'll look to be more of a bull in a few days. But for now, I'm still kind of in that bearish mindset. I don't know how you feel, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more neutral than anything else right now, and I know that's such a boring answer, but it's like, if we continue to have, like, bad news, and, like, I can easily flip to bearish mode, but it's like, at the same time, it's like, if we keep getting, like, neutral news, then it's hard to fight against that relentless buying pressure that the market always has flowing in. So really, I'm just in like a neutral stance right now, and then I'll just try to be adaptable, especially like over the next like 2 to 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, and talking about more news, right? We actually have Big Daddy Powell speaking tomorrow, talking about news. I know that might come into play for us a little bit here. I'll say this, I was looking all over every calendar today, and I did not see this news. So shout out to everybody in the Discord who hit us up with this. Powell is actually going to be speaking with Fed President Patrick Harker to take part in a roundtable discussion with workers, small business owners, and community leaders tomorrow. So it's going to be a pretty big event. It's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Anytime Powell speaks, we know, is going to cause some type of volatility, and he might say something about inflation or about possible rate hikes later this year, or not having rate hikes. I keep looking at the probabilities, Mike, and it really blows my mind that I'm sitting here still staring at no rate hikes. I feel like they keep talking about more rate hikes coming this year, but then I look at the probabilities and I'm like, it's still set to pause. So I'm a little bit confused here, but hey, it looks like pause is still being priced in, even though they're saying rate hikes later in the year.
Exactly. So that's what makes this interesting over like the next month or so, because Fed and the man, the myth, the legend, Jerome Powell keeps saying, we're probably going to do one more rate hike, but the market's calling BS on that. They're saying, no, you're not. And you can tell that right by the pricing on the chart right now. So, that's interesting, and we'll see who ends up being right on November 1st of 2023, because that's when the next decision is. So that's interesting. But yeah, Powell speaks tomorrow at 11 a.m. Anytime he speaks, he has that magical power that no one else does to just move the market. So you just got to pay attention to it. It will be important. And then later in the week, we do have the unemployment rate coming out on Friday, and those are the main events for the week. And Tom, while the earnings side of things isn't as exciting, cover it and just make it quick, please.
My favorite stock, Mike, McCormick, reports on Tuesday. Let's go. Shout out MKC. No, I'm just kidding, guys. That's generally a pretty good dividend stock, though, if you've ever seen it. But I'm kind of emphasizing that there really isn't anything here. But we do have Tilray on Wednesday before the market opens. And that is a very interesting one for me, Mike, with all the marijuana talk lately and all the MJ stocks starting to get some good momentum. Man, maybe they'll report a good outlook maybe with something changing or etc. But I don't know. For now, I'm still pretty skeptical on these earnings. You never know how these MJ stocks are going to go.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, Tom, it's now time for some of the news that totally came out of nowhere. And, for those of you who've been in the market for some time, at one point in time, Twitter was publicly traded. And then Mr. Musk came along and bought him up, right? And now Elon owns Twitter, or should I say X now. But long story short, we had some news just come out where Bill Ackman basically said that, there's a chance maybe that they'll do a deal with X/Twitter and bring it back onto the market. Basically, it's like a Spark vehicle, which is kind of like a SPAC, but that's not really important right now. The main thing to know is there's a tiny, tiny chance that we might all be able to trade Twitter again. But honestly, Tom, we all know that this is pretty low probability of actually happening. But hey, it's a start.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that they're talking about it, right? And sometimes Elon, I feel like, is somebody who, if somebody comes to him with some good idea or etc., he might kind of sign on to it. I'm wondering if he'll see this and maybe, hit up Bill Ackman, or if they've already talked. I have no idea, but it would be very interesting to see this happen, right? If Twitter came back on the market, it would blow, I think, some people's heads, because it's one of those huge platforms that whenever it went private, it really was like a big shock, right? People weren't really expecting that whenever Elon took over and he was like, oh, we're going private. And, that blew a lot of people away. It would be really crazy if they came back on the market. But I would say this, with how Elon is and how much he gets flack from the SEC and how much the SEC honestly messes with him, I don't think he's going to do this again, but we'll have to see. I've seen a lot of people talking about that he wouldn't want to. Some people say it would be cool if he did. So let me know in the comments if you think X could come back, and that would be sick, Mike, if it could trade under the actual ticker symbol X. It's too bad we have US Steel out there.
Yeah, so we will see. But that is the main stuff for the news side of things. So let's get right into the fun stuff, which are some setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching very closely is Chewy, ticker symbol CHWY. This stock is at a pretty decent level right now. It is very, very, very oversold, and that's a good thing, especially in this market. And basically right now, I think the risk-reward setup for an upside play on this one is pretty awesome. I would not be surprised if we saw a retest of $20.80 or so in the short term. And, of course it can go up even higher if, the buyers really step in.
Yeah, this thing's so low. I really feel like it's due for a pop back up. And Mike, it might not even be necessarily people buying it, right? There could be shorts covering down here.
Right.
I mean, it's so low right now. I feel like it just has to pop even just from shorts covering at this point. But it's one of those stocks that's so low, it's starting to come back up. And my next play is actually very, very similar to this, although it's not as volatile of a stock, I guess we'll say. It's Disney, though. It's another stock that whenever you look at that daily chart, you're like, holy crap, it's just so low right now. It's bouncing off of $80, and it's starting to finally come up. We have a nice solid green candle, and I think that we might get a multi-day continuation out of this. We had one back in the beginning of September. I kind of feel like we could come up for a few days, maybe retest $83 or so. I think that would be a pretty safe test, but I'm also looking for Disney to come up. And on Friday, I noticed they held their ground extremely well into market close, which I love it when stocks hold their highs in the close. It gives me a lot of courage that they're going to continue with that momentum. So keep Disney on the radar for tomorrow. If they break above 81.30, I'll definitely be eyeing up some calls.
Sounds great. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is WBA. This is another stock that is just so oversold. It's just crazy to even look at. Basically, right now, it's trading at $22.20, and it has been in a non-stop downtrend for especially over the past couple of years, but it is approaching a crucial support that it has not touched since 2008. So this is definitely pretty rare to see. Support levels like this are very, very strong. And looking at WBA, it's a company that I don't think is going out of business anytime soon. Walgreens, but either way, I think it's at such a low oversold point right now where like the risk to the downside is very minimal relative to the upside potential. So I do like it for a bullish play going forward.
Oh my gosh, Mike, that support going back to 2008 is something else. If you do not keep Walgreens on your radar over the next couple weeks, something is wrong with you. Definitely throw that on your watch list here, especially if you're a day trader, because, man, this thing is so low, and if it bounces off that support, that would be extremely, extremely fun to play. With my next play, I'm going with Tesla. They have those delivery numbers coming out, and they're still hovering right around this $250 mark. Last week, they actually went green on the week overall, believe it or not. They ended up coming back up, and Friday was a pretty decent close there. So I'll be watching for them to maybe break back above that 250 area on Monday. If they're able to break that pretty well, then I'll look at some calls. But keep in mind that the delivery numbers are going to really play a factor into this one. I really want to just keep it on the radar. It's going to be more of a feeling out play, right? Like if we open up Monday and those numbers come out and Tesla stock is shooting and it's like breaking 254 and there's a lot of good momentum, you might be able to get into some quick scalps with some calls here and there on Monday. But if the numbers go south and Tesla starts tanking, then you might have to look at puts. So it's a little bit of a sticky situation. You got to feel it out, but sometimes that's trading, right? Not every play is going to be like perfect, like, hey, you got to break above this, etc. Sometimes it takes a little bit more skill. You got to feel things out, obviously, and that momentum is going to be so important to find with Tesla because it's probably going to go crazy, at least one way or the other.
You know it. Alrighty, well, it's now about that time for the momentum plays, and with the first one, we have PayPal to the upside.
PYPL to the upside. Go ahead and make them break out above $59.50, just above that high from Friday.
All right, with the next one, we have Zoom also to the upside.
ZM, yeah, beautiful here. They're actually sitting right on a trend line. So if they break that $71 resistance, then go ahead and watch them up. And I will say, guys, I have to go in depth a little bit more on Zoom here. This trend line they've been following it down forever. I have been waiting for a breakout of this for so long. If this is finally where we get the break, this could be a really fun trade.
All right, and now with the last one, we have Microsoft for both directions.
MSFT, yeah, to the downside. I kind of like that lower support here. If they break under 315, go ahead and look at puts. That's right around the low of day Friday. They had a couple bounces right there. If they end up breaking out above 320, then look at calls. It's above that high of day Friday.
Sounds great. So we have the downside level for a play to the downside for Microsoft. We have the upside level for a play to the upside. And then with Zoom and PayPal, don't forget about their upside levels as well for potential upside play, only if they break above the levels Tom listed. But it's now time for the big money $760,000 trade of the day. Looking at today's big money play, we have ticker symbol SAVA, and basically someone plowed $760,000 into the SAVA 15 strike call options, and I'm kind of scared to talk about the expiration on this one because it's pretty far out, which is not a bad thing, but it is January 16th of 2026. So obviously these options have a ton of time, but that's not a bad thing. So basically, SAVA is like a biopharmaceutical company, and these types of companies move a ton based off of their treatments and, drugs that they create and things like that, right? So, obviously with the big money play buying calls so far out, they're kind of banking off of this company, having some sort of big treatment come out or positive reaction to, one of their products or something like that. And looking at these companies, they always move big off of news and FDA announcements and stuff like that. The way I look at it is a risky play given the industry it's in, but if it works, it will probably be a pretty big win. Overall, this is a setup I do like, but at the same time, you have to know how to play it the right way. Like if you're gonna follow the big money play, you cannot be hoping that SAVA is gonna go up, within the next 3 days, right? Like they're buying time with this one, and I feel like if you follow this play and you give it the time that it needs, it can end up working. But either way, it's very interesting, and I'm going to have a close eye on it going forward.
Yeah, and I'll say this, SAVA is pretty cheap too. It's only $16, $17 a share. Generally, more stocks are higher than that. It seems pretty good to maybe even pick up shares down here. I'm not saying maybe to hold them forever, but maybe if you didn't want to get options on the big money plays, shares could be a good way to go. So then that way you don't have to sit through all that volatility necessarily, and have it be as volatile. But at the end of the day, this stock's also right on a big support. I mean, this support has hit a lot down here. Look, in 2022, there were 2 perfect hits here. Stock flew to the upside over, hell, I think 300% on the one move up there. And we're sitting right on that support again. And what did we do even just a month ago or so? We ended up hitting in August and flew all the way up to 22. So I'm curious if this support holds. We're sitting right on it. The big money almost couldn't have timed it better as far as a support bounce goes. So I love that, Mike. I think for the longer term, this will end up being great. But like you said, you gotta give it time. Even though it's on support right now, this could end up busting right down through here. The big money won't even give a crap, right? They're going to be like, I got 3 years on this. I'm all good.
Exactly. So yeah, keep a close eye on this one going forward. It's definitely a play that you don't see every day for multiple reasons. When you have a biopharmaceutical, neurology, neuroscience company, of course it's crazy, but when you have this much time too, it definitely makes you think. So keep a close eye on this one going forward. But with everything being said, especially lately with the market, it has been a little bit choppy in the short term, and it makes it hard to trade. So if you had a rough week last week, sometimes that just happens in the market. But go into this week with an open mind, a clear head. Stay disciplined. Don't get too crazy with your position sizing. As always, have stop losses in place, and let's have a great week, guys. Normally after periods of chop and hard times to trade, we normally do see some pretty awesome moves. So keep your heads up high even if you had a rough week, and let's crush it.
Yeah, exactly. And I know the market's been going down a lot lately. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there were a few green days sprinkled in, kind of like last week. The SPY's on support right around 424, 425. Just keep that in mind. It could start popping back up a little bit, and that choppiness could continue. And if you're out there and you're like, hey, well, it's choppy, this sucks, what do I do, right? Maybe try to even put some good support and resistances on your chart. Like if you notice a bunch of chop intraday and you notice like a stock hitting off of a multiple levels like a few times, like on Friday, there were multiple hits on this 427.50 support. That could have been an area maybe you saw the first bounce. Maybe you got in some calls as it bounced the second time. You trade it back up. You might have to adjust your strategy a little bit right now, or Mike, I hate to say it, but it's not even that bad to take a break sometimes, right? It's sitting on the sidelines is not bad, especially when you're in these chop zones, right? You really want to catch that good movement like we were with SPY a couple weeks ago whenever it was really, really fun. Now it's starting to consolidate a little bit. So just have that open mind, like Mike said. Be ready for this week. And if last week went bad for you, things can change abruptly. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff with Tesla on Monday. And then, of course, Big Daddy Powell speaks too. So there's going to be some opportunity somewhere.
Yeah, so keep your heads up and let's have an amazing week, everyone. If for some reason you're not already subscribed to the channel, demolish that subscribe button. It takes us hours to make these videos in a good way where we find all the best setups, all the best news, and everything you need to know for the markets. We try to keep all videos in like the 20 to 25 minute range, so nice and quick. So if you guys enjoy, definitely subscribe so you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. But last but not least, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, which is Dow R in the YouTube comments. Thank you so much for the kind words and all of your support. Tom and I really appreciate you. And besides that, let's have an amazing week in the markets.